Hi, I'm Tom Zimmerman from the EMDR podcast. This little short episode explains the purposes of the container in the four blinks approach. It's one of the most common questions people ask me. Why does your, flash-like approach have a very, very explicit container? And I want to explain. I want to explain why. One thing that's important to remember is that the activation that happens in Flash needs to be very, very light, and it needs to be separate from the calm scene. I know that in other psychotherapies, this activation and noticing kind of go like this. They go back and forth, and there's a lot of bleed through, meaning, the activation is going to cause stuff that we're going to notice. In Flash, it's really opposite. So activation and noticing are completely different, meaning what we're activating is not what we're noticing. It's a whole other thing entirely. And the purpose of activation, or the purpose of activating, is to bring into awareness the memory, bring into working memory the memory, but we're careful not to set it on fire. We're careful not to overly activate it. So one of the ways that we can think about differences between different types of clients may be the types of nervous systems that they have. So imagine someone who's had a really good life, just mountains and mountains of adaptive information, but has had these really difficult things, right? These difficult experiences that have really, messed with them, but yet most of life has been pretty healthy. With a Flash-like approach, you can give a little example here. You can activate, that memory, okay? And then you can pivot away from it. Simply pivoting away from it and not feeding it is likely to be enough of a container. So I know in Phil Manfield's version, he doesn't have an explicit container. He uses dialogue, he uses conversation, he uses the disruptions of that positive scene. And all of that, kind of the distractions and the engagement and getting into your rational mind pivots away from that. And it's a lot like this, right? So there's some heat here, there's some fire here. Pivoting away from it, not attending to it, can cause it to, kind of cool down. You can get engaged in this other process, and things can continue from there. So that's a non-pervasively traumatized nervous system. A pervasively traumatized nervous system may be a lot like this, right? So what's going to happen if I go anywhere near this, right? So what's going to happen? What might happen? It's a little bit different. So the reason we have a container is if stuff gets activated, we need a place to put this stuff, right? And one of the places where a memory may become activated could be in the body. So again, and even the trash can that's full of paper, that's a little bit of an understatement of what may happen with a pervasively traumatized nervous system, because that trash can is going to ignite other trash cans. So again, it's important, I think, to understand the nervous system that you may be working with, and to understand that even lightly activating a trauma could activate the trauma. And when you do activate the trauma, you're going to need some kind of mechanism to manage it. And containers are pretty good. It's a pretty good mechanism for that. So related to the container and related to activation, back to the slinky metaphor, a lot of times in Flash-like approaches, when the suds goes down, but it doesn't go all the way down, there's something we're missing. right? There's some type of activation that we haven't named, we haven't identified, we haven't put our finger on, and then containered and then pushed out of awareness. A lot of flash or flash-like practitioners don't really check the body. A lot of times, if you have a residual 2, you have a residual 3, you have a residual 4, that's probably something stuck in the body, and you may want to attend to that. You may want to vacuum that out, and that sensation you're going to want to see. If a client can visualize the ick, the the pressure, the tension, kind of going into the vacuum and going out of awareness and out of focus, so that we can give all of our awareness and focus to the calm seeing. That would be ideal. If you do that, you're likely to see the suds fall the rest of the way. If it's not in the body, if the distress, that residual distress, is not in the body, then we need to find it. There's something there on some channel, body sensation, thought, emotion, some piece of the memory. Sometimes when things get to a 1 or a 2, very often simply the thought, "This happened to me," is what they need to notice for it to go the rest of the way down. Just processing that, containering that thought that this happened to me. This is a pretty crappy reality. And it happened to me, may be what they need to make that, to container, make that distress go down the rest of the way. So I like the container because it is a pretty good ritual, and it is also a pretty core trauma resource that people are going to need. So if this is what we're potentially dealing with, wouldn't it be nice to have a nice big place for that to go, to get it out of awareness, to get it out of attention, where it can smolder its way down while we're noticing this other space, this other scene. So I find the container helpful. If you don't find the container helpful, then that's okay. I do recommend it for clients with really pervasively traumatized nervous systems. It's a skill they need. It is a part of this 4 blinks approach that really can predictably, reliably, predictably process memories all the way down to a 0 suds. So again, several people have asked, those are some thoughts about the container. And if you have any other thoughts about the utility of the container or anything else related to 4 blinks, let me know. I'd love to have a conversation with you. I really do view this approach as a collaborative approach. I don't want to own it. I don't need to own it. As a matter of fact, one of the things we may need to do with all types of trauma approaches is to get as much ego out as we can. And thank you.